Hey everyone, welcome to Konsui Fighter Live. It has been a little bit.
A little bit.
A little.
Yep, I'm Logan.
I'm Sean.
I'm Shane.
And this is our 36th episode of Konsui Fighter Live. As you can tell, we've done a little different things.
Yeah.
If you remember, before we had our kind of like big wide range, so we actually decided during the holiday break kind of thing to just try to change it up a little bit, see if we could do something different. So we have more kind of face shots for you guys to kind of,
and we can like look at each other more as we're talking.
And
Yep.
So it has been a minute. Let's go ahead and get into just some of our new
Let's get to the news.
Yeah, let's get to the things that. Let's talk about 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say not 2020.
Yeah,
we'll ignore that.
Let's talk about 2022.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And let's go ahead and talk about some of the stuff that we have done already, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
poking away at stuff.
Yeah, we had a lot done. I don't know. Did I give you a graphic for all the like cards? I thought I threw one.
Yes. You did. I can super quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and just.
Well, while Logan's pulling that up, yeah, I got a view. We'll show here in a second of like all the cards we had for each release cycle, which we do monthly.
Yep,
yeah.
Nice.
And basically, yeah.
You don't need to read all of this because I don't think you can.
It's just more to visually illustrate like how the year ended up looking. And this isn't everything. Some of these go off screen, but
yeah. There's also some that have like subtasks and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, we as far as like major accomplishments we had last year, we actually had 7 build releases that we pushed out during the year. There's quite a few. 201 tasks that we accomplished over the course of the entire year. And yeah, so there were a lot of individual items that went in. But yeah, we can probably flip back to us. But yeah, the some of the key things that we got in last year, so the tutorials, we got all the core mechanics covered in the tutorial modules last year. We did a lot of work on like improving the asset quality and kind of our release process to improve our availability to have higher quality assets in the game.
And to be fair, a lot of that was like a lot of older targets we had. So at the time they were fine. But now that we have more storage and stuff, we might as well make it better.
For us, we've also done a lot of work in streamlining the releases to pull out a lot of debug and complete content from being released. We finally got our PC and Steam Deck builds set up to have like an actual distribution package and things like that. So a lot of work on the release side last year. let's see, what else? The AI updates and tooling, probably one of the big like core gameplay features last year.
Yep.
Basically, we've talked about it in some of our previous streams from 22, but yeah, the core of our AI forecasting process was revised, and we're working on some new tools, which we'll talk about a little bit more later.
Lots of individual character and move tweaks.
Yeah,
To make things more consistent across the board.
yeah. So quite a bit there, and let's see, the Steam Deck side of things, I guess, is probably another big call out. We got our native Steam Deck build going, got our Steam page started, the actual store listing started. So yeah, those are just a couple of the big highlights from last year, but a lot went in then. We have a lot going in this year.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So switching on to the next topic.
Yeah, things that are new
the
since
update.
Last.
Yeah. So yeah, what when was our last stream? Like October, November? I think it was around November.
I think it was it was after Halloween.
Yeah. So yeah, since we talked last, there's a number of things we've done. We already mentioned we have our updated stream setup we've been working on. So Logan's been working pretty hard to get us set up with some new equipment and some fresh layouts and things. There's probably some things I assume we'll still tweak here and there over time, but it's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and so we got more webcams, and so this is kind of at least what we're testing. So let us know if you like this better than the group shot, because we'd love that feedback.
Yeah, the biggest change that you won't really see is he's running this off of one of his laptops. We're eventually going to have a dedicated PC for this, but yeah, that's in a month or two.
So you might hear a minor wooze sound.
Yeah,
that's the laptop fan. So hopefully within the next few streams we'll have that up and running, and then it'll be fine.
The new PC will be much quieter. Yep. And under a table.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But
they even got these fancy wireless mics. They've been working great.
Yep. Yeah. So we don't have one mic for all of us now. You can probably hear us all a little bit better.
Hopefully.
Yep.
At least in the kind of community side, we are still we should still be planned to go to NakaCon, which is our local Kansas City based anime convention. We haven't gotten full word yet. The right now we should still be in the same area that we were in the gaming hall, but there's a potential that we might either be in the exhibitor hall or the artist alley. If we're gonna be in one of those two, I would prefer artist alley.
Sure.
But only because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But I really hope we can get in the gaming area, just because again, I just think that's more prime location for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And
I assume we'll tell everybody once we
once there's another one that is closer to the end of the year. I'm gonna hold off on talking about it because it's not 100% that we're doing it.
Sure. We looked into a couple others.
Yeah, I mean, I looked into E3, and unfortunately, and that was one thing that we didn't. I mean, we didn't talk about too much. Shane was I told you how much it was,
right?
But we didn't really. That was it. You never brought it up again. So here's what's funny about their pricing. Okay, they charge per square foot, so it's $30 per square foot. Unless you're an ESA member, then it's $25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus an additional $2,000 just to get put into their digital marketing, which all it is to get us on their website that our booth is there.
Right.
Well, and if you remember, PAX had different levels of that too that we didn't pay into.
Right, but I mean, theirs was at least if you looked at who the exhibitors are going to be there, ours was there. They are charging us for that.
Yes. Yeah. For advertising.
And you have to do it. So there's not even I don't even know why they don't just include that in the price with the anyways.
I was joking we should just get a 1x1 pedestal. 1x1 foot pedestal.
But so it would be Yeah, about $5,000. So that's a little bit more than we're looking at. The other one that I was kind of considering.
There may come a day where that isn't that big of a deal,
right?
But
once we're actually making money.
for right now, it's
I think the one that I would say that would be a little bit more interesting to look at is
my only other concern with E3 too is just I don't know how this year is going to turn out. Like with supposedly the major players not being there.
Yeah, but it is still one of the largest events by attendance.
I think it'll be big.
And
I'm just
media
curious,
presence too.
because there's also different people running it. Like, how is it going to translate?
Yeah, I mean, this year would probably be. This is probably a good year to kind of see what they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
But the other one that I think that might actually, well, one I know is cheaper because it's about 1,600. Was sorry, I am
trying to find the name.
No, I am doing mod stuff. There was a huge block of text, and I was like, "Oh wow, somebody said something," and it was junk.
Of course,
because that's the one thing that we haven't set up for this channel was bots. But anyways, so now I know to do that.
Yeah.
But is Anime Expo?
Oh yeah.
So Anime Expo has an entertainment section that they have like game people. And so I was looking at that, and that was about I think it was between 14 and 18. It was one of those.
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
and it would be cool to go to.
Right, and that
it's a big show.
It's a big show. It's kind of our target demographic.
You get to visit LA again.
Right. It's at the LA Convention Center,
which is huge. Yeah.
But anyways, so
essentially be where E3 is.
Right, it is where E3 is.
Yeah.
So the only one for sure is NakaCon, and then the one in the fall. I'll give you guys more. I'll update you guys more on that probably closer to summer.
We need confirmation that we're in and that
right.
they're comfortable with us. Probably.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and then our goal for Naka is to not get sick this year.
Yep. Yeah. No COVID.
Yeah, that was
just bad timing.
That was
didn't
rough.
know.
But honestly, I think it's a good thing that we played it safe. It would not have made
because in theory we could have gone, but it would have.
It would have been rough for us to maintain the booth the whole time, just between the two of us, and there's always the risk that we're around Logan.
Yeah.
So
We didn't know.
Well, you were.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah, you were in the car.
Right.
And when I was driving, I made sure I was going.
I was kind of.
Logan,
just crack a window.
could you crack a window and give me a straw? But anyways, other than that, we have, I guess, other semi-community-ish stuff for me is that we have one more trademark to go for, and we'll be doing that, closer to the early springtime. But so far, we do have we have Konsui Fighter trademarked, Konsui Fighter the logo trademarked, Circean Studios logo trademarked. It's just Circean Studios name.
The term we need to finalize,
which will be good to have.
But other than that, so that's at least the last part of that we're working on, at least on my front, and then taxes.
Well, at this point, you've done what you could. Right. We're waiting on the state, basically.
Yeah.
So.
It is weird that the last few years, the state has been dragging out the process.
I told him, I would have gotten paid back my taxes next week.
So I know. Every year, the last several years, I feel like they pushed out that date.
I heard one state, I forget what state it was begging people to wait to do their taxes.
Yeah.
That's
they
just
don't
bad.
Have enough people.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or funding or something, but. Yep.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and. So I'm done.
Okay.
I've updated you guys with me.
The community update.
But how are you doing?
Just peachy.
Yeah.
Yeah, build wise, I think the big thing since we last streamed was that we have our beginning of the year build out, 2023.1. That build brings a lot of fixes to network multiplayer and some general performance issues that we identified.
Mhm.
So I think it's probably one of our more solid releases recently, just as far as the core of things.
At
go.
this point, we're finding nice little bugs that are hard to track down, but like are still important.
Yeah, I
So,
mean most of the mechanical stuff. The other
yeah.
nice thing with that is with that release, we've basically completed the majority of the mechanical revisions that we had outlined at this point. So the core of gameplay is there.
Yep.
The balancing will probably shift. That is a lot of what we're getting ready to do.
Especially with
going,
AI.
AI
you're
and
gonna go
core
over the
balance
characters.
and adjustments. So let's segue into that
Yeah.
with an update on what Jas has been working on. We talked about this a little bit on the last stream. Jas is currently working on a number of character adjustments that we've outlined to address areas of visual disparity or maybe some balancing tweaks that would be helpful. And most recently, he's been working on a bunch of stuff for Yasu. So we'll show you guys a couple of the pieces he's put together now. The first one here is Yasu's updated throw. We kind of talked back and forth about some ways we could kind of streamline the motion so it looked a little bit cleaner in game with the tighter timing set that we have working on. So Jas worked on some updates, and that's what we got here.
Mhm.
Another thing that we've noticed, and this has been in the plan for a while now, at a lot of our gaming events like Naka, it's been pretty clear that Yasu's 3-point strike move is kind of one of our hot outliers of just spam abuse game attacks in the game.
And she's getting older. She's not as spry as she
well,
used to be.
Yeah, so there are some adjustments to the dynamics of the move that we're going to be making to help. But in addition to that, we want to buff the cooldown risk on that move so that like she has a pretty lengthy cooldown for pulling that mechanic that can't be skipped. So to do that, Yasu's going to get a little bit winded after completing the actual move itself, and this is a loop that Jas put together that we can use for the recovery period for adding that in. So it'll be interesting to see how the gameplay actually changes with some of these adjustments in place. And then I think Jas also worked on some of the other air tween frames that we have, just add a little more like wind variation and things like that for better visual parity instead of just holding a solid frame for an extended period of time for some of those situations, which that's something we've done with several of the other. So,
and in case you couldn't tell by the green, we're not quite done coloring it all.
Well, it's masking. The umbrella has a particular process that we mask all the frames pre-aligned so that the texture of the umbrella is basically like frame locked. So, these are Jas's raw.
Or maybe it's her St. Patrick's Day.
No, true. It's almost that time of year.
Well, these are the raw frame assets that Jas has delivered. Yeah, so he's been hard at work on a lot of those.
Yep. Lots of little tweaks from him.
Yeah. So let's see. Gameplay features wise, let's pivot over to the options menu. Knock that out. Talk about that. So we finally have another feature in this build is that we finally have the options menu. Now what I'm showing here is just a preview cut of the current version that we have in the PC release for testing. So there are some screens in this that are not on the phone side, like video settings, and some screens that are on the phone side, like the touch control settings, that are not on the PC side. But the menu brings a variety of options for setting your typical graphics resolution settings, sound levels, resetting of save data, and some other in-game settings.
Volume controls.
Right.
Yeah.
And setting the control settings for the phone side. So on the phone side now, you can choose between the 4 different touch presets we have. There's standard, southpaw, inverted standard that flips the attack buttons, and inverted southpaw, which is both. So I'm kind of curious as well to kind of have some people, some lefties, like try it out, see what they think, or just get people's impressions at Naka this year. Also, we have the ability in the menu to toggle between controller-based modes. So we have not released that in the phone build until this release is in there now. So if you have a controller connected, the game will hop into controller mode, and you can toggle between that and touch in the menu there. So that also completes the rough version of all of our menu structures at this point. So at least that view is at its preliminary functional stage.
I know we have some tweaks toward the end for like net play, but that'll be its own thing. So,
Well, actually, that's a good call out. So there are some features that went into net play for this. So now we have support for mixed control modes. So you could be playing on your phone with touch controls versus somebody on the computer with a controller. And we support technically changing the control modes mid-match, although we're not exposing that in the menus quite yet. But the support in the runtime is there. And there was a good amount of work we actually had to do to account for that, because there are different control schemes depending on whether you're using a controller or touch.
Different
and things
icons,
like that.
the way the moves are executed.
So a lot of that work has been done with this release and is in the build now. So just a lot of little improvements like that to get the gameplay experience up.
Another funny one to me is always like resolution changing.
Yeah.
You had to do a lot of verification to make sure that's saved and restored.
Yeah, there's still a few improvements to that I need to lock in, but for a basic implementation and toggling between modes, it works.
There's just a surprising amount of things you have to
There's
test
lots of
that.
edge cases that can occur. Different systems handle the window interface in different ways. So there's a lot in the core engine that we have to account for with that. But yeah, so a lot of good improvements there. These are critical things to helping us get toward our PC and Steam Deck releases. So yeah, good progress. Let's see. So with that, Sean's been working a lot on the AI tooling, and I think we'll pivot over to show some of the nice giraffes. Graphs that we have for the AI side. So
actually, here, let me start with the first
one.
one.
Sure.
So Sean, I'll let you talk a little bit about what all these squiggly lines
are. Well, you helped design them, but the idea is we're dumping all of the simulations that we're doing for the AI stuff, and we're just trying to verify that the numbers look kind of like we're expecting, like that the spread is even, that it's picking reasonable things, like that there's no outliers. So you can see most of these charts, the numbers have a good spread to them because they're kind of normalized between 0 and 100.
So each line basically represents like a different attack that the character could do, or a different action that they could do, although I think this is just the attack view.
Sure.
And how the AI scored it over time throughout the progress of a match. So you can see that like certain attacks get better or worse over the course of the match playing out. So it really is kind of like, it's good for us to look at that top level to see like, what is the trend? Are we seeing enough diversity in the numbers? We're not seeing like odd patterns of things that would indicate we're not really getting like the kind of unique selection we want to see. The good news is that it looks really good.
So
this weird spot here toward the left where the numbers kind of squeeze together and then spread out, that's great, because you can see like to the left of that, there's kind of an even distribution, and then you get a point where certain key things are better, and then to the right, different things come in and out of being like optimal choice. So that's a great result to see, and this is one of the key things we're going to use tuning.
Because we're dumping a lot of numbers, so it's hard to like just dig through them. But this gives you a nice overview. And like you said, some of these make sense because like they might only be able to perform certain moves, or certain moves just make more sense than others, so others get thrown out. So we can kind of see the spread of that.
And then the other view that we have is just basically it's the same data, but it's showing it in a different way, right?
So a lot of this is kind of stacking all the options on top of each other, so you can see like we had a lot more options in some of these runs. But again, because like maybe the character was in the middle of a move, so it couldn't execute most of its moves, or the positioning of the characters, like only one thing could even hit the character, so maybe it only got a score.
So each one of these stacks is like an instant where the AI made a decision to use the forecast. And then within that forecast, each color is a different option, and how much of a share of efficiency that option was out of the option. So
Yep.
this is a good way for us to see, one, that the total stacked efficiency is changing over time. So we're not always getting 100% efficient between all the options every time. There are times where there's not a lot of good options or a lot of diverse options, and it shows us, again, how varied the choices are. So it's another way of us kind of looking at the data to see trends and to make sure we're getting a good mix.
Yeah, and we're trying to break these down in different ways because, what the first view was more everything that was simulated, but really only a small fraction of that actually gets picked. We have a separate view of that chart and this one is an example that's just the selections. So you can kind of see like what was it predicting, but what did it actually pick from? It's like two different views. It's also just a lot less data. So.
It's kind of interesting. We talked about this like in the context of a match. When the AI is actually picking from the forecasting results, we're forecasting, at least on the high end difficulty, every 50 milliseconds, every
and it could be like 20, 30
frames.
different actions.
And so we're throwing all those forecasts out there, but over the course of a round or a match, the AI is actually only making so many choices to invoke things, which is actually a really good thing from a balancing perspective, because it means we only really have to focus on a particular subset of choices that the AI is making and tweaking those. So, it's pretty cool.
Still coming along. I'm still cleaning up some of the data and then fitting it in the charts we need. But
we're getting pretty close. So,
and then it ties in with some of the system I built too, which we've shown versions of it where you can actually like record the gameplay and play it back. So we could actually kind of get both sets. You could see what it did during that match and the charts for the simulations. Or play back individual simulations, like why did this get a bad score?
Right. Yeah, it helps us also make sure the forecasting logic is consistent as well.
Because it's pretty close, but right now, like our physics rate's still a little off.
It's meant to be a little under to add a little fuzziness, and that also gives us better processing efficiency. So
it's always
it's kind of a win-win.
Fairly easy to make an impossible AI, but you want to make it fun.
Fun.
So this is the point of the stream where we got to throw up the spoiler warning. Okay.
Spoiler warning.
There's another thing we've been working on that if you don't want to know spoilers about the late game, then maybe turn away for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Just cover your eyes.
We're gonna show. We are gonna show a sneak peek at part of the end game. So. We'll do that.
For those who have a weak constitution, turn your eyes away
Avert
now.
your eyes. So one of the other things
charts.
More charts.
The old
more charts. No, one of the things that we've been working on is the actual final assembly of Khan's stage for the end game encounter, and you can see that here. But more specifically, wiring up the subcomponents like the floor panels. The statue of a Yumu that we have here. And during the very final encounter, face-off between Haku and Khan, this is still just a prototype version of Khan we're using that's very rough for testing. But as you deal damage to him, that statue will begin to crumble and crack, and you can kind of see that in the background. Once you get him defeated, the game's going to go to like a slow-mo cut, but the statue pops and some other cool stuff happens. So this is me kind of testing the process that I built into the stage for the statue crumbling away based on Khan's health and then ultimately exploding once it gets low. So, we have the new frames included for the background rotation that Jas worked on, I think last summer. We worked with him to we mocked some subframes to double the frame count so it's a little bit smoother. And he put together actual proper frames. So we have those together and everything's there. So this is the last stage for release that we basically have assembled. There's probably a few minor tweaks that we'll need before it's fully done to hook into the different story encounters and how it'll be handled for arcade mode and other modes because it'll function a little special. But yeah, I mean, one of the other key things, talking about the asset quality improvements too, this is the first stage that we natively sampled at our in-game target of 720p. So we've also been able to notice there's a bit better quality to the stage assets in game. It scales a bit better, scaling up. We do have some process by launch to work on going through and resampling the other stages similarly, and getting those updated.
Certain character assets. Yeah.
So one thing that's kind of neat, and I don't know if you talked about this, was the spinning.
Oh, yeah.
Like what you had to do to get the spinning kind of...
Well, he partially mentioned it. It was a lower frame rate, so Jazz had to go back and draw more frames.
Yeah, basically what we did to prototype tween frames was we used Dane, which if you follow like other scaler or interpolation tools, it's a pretty popular one, but it's an AI-based frame interpolator that will basically generate subframes between known frames. There's a lot of examples out there, people converting old films or games up to higher frame rate with that.
Yeah. We didn't use the output.
No, and there's definitely a lot of limitations. I wouldn't want to directly use the output from it. But what we used it for was a tool to generate subframes that helped inform Jas at how to physically arrange each of the subframes.
Yeah, because it's a very complicated rotating layout.
And he was able to kind of translate the assets and put it together there, so it looks really good. I kind of dig that it's not like buttery smooth, and there's a little bit of like subframey old school game, like almost, you know, rotated billboard style to some of the assets. I think it looks great.
Kind of a drawn look.
It gives a little character. So I'm really happy with how the final stages turned out. There's some subtle touches in here that if you keep a careful eye, you'll notice. For example, the electricity along the side panels is randomized. It has a slower mode that it operates in standard, but once the statue kind of comes out and the game goes into like the final encounter, it picks up the rate at which that happens, and some other little things like that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to put together, and there are some funky layering things going on here to account for the floor panels being able to be masked properly, and the statue and some other things, but they're not really good. So.
And Khan himself, like, that's kind of our last character. Yeah. We have a lot of planning already done.
Yep. So. Yeah. So that's a good segue into what are we working on next? What's next on the agenda? So yeah, like Sean mentioned, continued work on Khan's planning, getting some adjustment references applied to Jas. So he can pivot to that when we're ready, and just prototyping, doing gray box type work where we throw rough frames in the game and play test the dynamics of certain moves to pin down the balance.
Yeah, because he
structure.
Has some funky mechanics, but he
has a lot of and he's evolved. We've talked about this a little bit in some of the recent streams, but the way we're balancing him and the dynamics of his character are a little bit different now. But I really like the direction that we're landing on with him. So. He'll be quite the formidable boss by the end.
But it's nice too, because like content-wise, like we're kind of to the point where we're just doing a lot of polish and
core gameplay and adding the remaining content to the game.
But it's so much less than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the key things that stuck out to me over the last year is there's more systems and tasks coming up as like, hey, this is more or less finalized, like minus final tweaking. The functionality is there. We're really in a true solid beta grade on this. Like the menus getting there, the core gameplay and the core characters are just about there.
Well, we're even to like the last stage and the last boss. Like,
so
really coming together.
The list is starting to shrink, which is a good thing to see. So beyond that, I think, Sean, we've talked about some network enhancements that you're going to be taking a look at after the AI tooling.
Yeah, more along the lines of, again, polished stuff. We know there's edge cases where like the sync can get like way off and it takes a while for it to come back. So we're trying to get that sync much more concise and precise.
Yeah, we've got a situation now where I think when there's a spike of network latency, we're actually pushing the devices out of sync when we shouldn't be pushing them out of sync at all.
So we're going to go revisit that. It's a very complicated, because you're dealing with 2 clocks with an unknown distance between them.
Yeah.
That can change. So it's a tricky problem.
But we have some we've read
some papers,
articles and things from other games, other fighting games, how they've handled some of that stuff.
There's a lot of like high level best practice, but you have to like actually implement that, and that's tricky.
Yeah.
But a lot of the base systems are there already.
Yeah.
We also want to play again with actual internet play.
Yes.
Instead of just local.
Right. So, I mean, our plan is to support internet play.
Yes.
And I think it's my opinion that we really should wait to make our PC release public until we have some mechanism. One of the biggest challenges with that is NAT traversal.
Yes,
and
trying to get through firewalls.
That is something that we're also probably going to start taking a look at kind of soon, so that we can get that under
even like matchmaking and stuff. But we're going to use a third-party library to help us with that.
Yep.
And then our goal long term is to still kind of make this as open as possible. Like you don't need to like sign up for an account of us, or like maybe
we don't want to be in the
don't.
business of account management and stuff like that.
And even long term, like in theory, like we're just always going to support local net play.
Yeah.
So like if you're just on the same network, that'll always just work.
And I've been open to the idea of including some fallback internet-based option, like
where you can host it.
Yeah, there's a way you can host it and
open a port or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Basically, direct connect.
Like if you're wanting to do your own like local tournament.
Exactly. Like because it'd be great to utilize a public matchmaking service for that, but for the game to have legs over time, it'd be great to just support some way of doing a direct connection, because it is a peer-to-peer game. So,
and there's a lot of ways to do that, and we've thought of a couple. It's just more implementing it this time. And like the little thing I mentioned is we need to have like a menu system where you can see like a list of people to play with.
Yeah. We've charted out conceptually what that will look like, and we've built some of the structures to support that. But there's definitely more to do there. So
we're going to support lots of methods, make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. So, still making good progress on the soundtrack and story. I didn't really talk about it too much earlier, but one of the big efforts with the soundtrack was reorganizing all of the project files into kind of a better standard, and then getting all of them migrated over to the new East-West Sounds Online Platinum licensing.
That was a mess.
It was a mess, not only because of the way that I had to manually kind of carry over everything, but I also wanted to do a backup of all of this gold level audio.
Just in case.
So I had to go through every project file and basically do a high quality bounce of the independent tracks of everything with that, and then hand migrate every instrument preset and every adjustment to them over. So that
hopefully that's just a one-time thing.
it should be one time. Platinum is their higher tier, which the benefit you guys get, and again, asset quality. They're higher quality samples, and some of them have been updated with more recent recordings.
Which they're like Blu-ray quality, right?
Yeah,
like
they're 24-bit. They're 24-bit audio. The previous version we had was 16.
Yeah,
which honestly was fine for what we were doing. But it is good to have the extra overhead, and
especially if we want to like actually publish the
I think we will have a soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll have much higher quality.
So it's nice, and that effort's been done. So the list of outstanding tracks is dwindling down.
Isn't it like 40 tracks you had to go through or something? Like it's a lot of tracks.
I need to double check, because I know our overall track count, we're projecting to land somewhere around 60 tracks. Yeah. And
so it's basically 60 projects.
I only have like so many left to do compositionally. So there's like probably around 8 to 10.
And to be fair, some are like little interludes between variation.
A number of them are like dialogue backing tracks and shorter loops. Still, but
there's a lot of manual work.
Yes, it was quite a bit to do. So that's done, thankfully, and so hopefully now I have the foundation to finish the remaining stuff. I do still have a larger effort closer to release to go through and do a final master pass on everything for final adjustments and export for the actual flat soundtrack version, the in-game copies and all that stuff. And we'll be upping the in-game quality because the quality setting that we've used before is fine, but there's a substantial difference with the new export chain that I have now. So that'll make a pretty big difference too. So
so I know that you talked about, that you told me at this at one point, but do you want to kind of talk about what our kind of future updates look like from their standpoint?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
So we mentioned, like, we've had the 2023.1 release. We are still tracking our work on like monthly development cycles. So like right now we're in the 2023.2 cycle. We kind of tried to stick to a policy last year of, at the end of a cycle, if we have enough substantial content to release, or there were changes in the release that are more user facing, we'll push that release, we'll do our stream and kind of talk about what's new. Because we are starting to get toward the final like leg of the core components, more of our work now is going into things that are not necessarily publicly visible. There are story chapters we're not opening up until the game releases. There's soundtrack components that are part of those chapters.
Features.
There are characters that will not be released prior to release. There's internet play and other features that like are not going to be utilized publicly prior to that. So our releases this year are probably going to be more on an as it makes sense basis. Like when we get to the conclusion of what we feel is this balancing pass we're starting to ramp up now, which should be the last balancing pass prior to launch.
Or the AI balancing as a separate task.
I'm lumping that in with this as balancing as a whole, like frame tweaks, move tweaks, polishing, and AI tuning. That is kind of the big gameplay hump we have left. But yeah, you know, we may or may not be pushing a release every so often. So I would actually expect this year, you know, probably fewer releases over the year in general, just because of the fact that less of those things are going to have a public facing thing. And hopefully, knock on wood, one of those releases is release 1.0.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of our focus right now is just going into getting all that content finished and everything tied up so we can get.
Well, and also I think now that like holidays are behind us and stuff, maybe we'll get back to more regular updates.
Yeah, I mean, that's another good call out. The last year brought a lot of life events that took some time away from our time to commit to this, which was challenging. It was a challenging year. So, you know, I think this year I'm looking forward to kind of a better focused year for us to knock out stuff and keep plowing ahead. So
awesome.
Yep. All right. So but now that we have this kind of new setup and all that, you can kind of look forward to us keeping a fairly regular schedule. We're shooting for the first Saturday of every month. We will so that would be 3 weeks from today to do the first Saturday of March. So that should be fine. There is going to be, I'm going to Europe in May, so we will not be streaming.
You didn't want to do a live stream from across the country?
I mean, we could make it interesting.
You'd have like a 5-second delay.
What?
What?
But so yeah, I think so.
You're
at least
on mute,
at least in May, it won't be the first. But
I am not a cat.
I assure you, I'm not a cat. But other than that, I mean, you know, again, keep tabs up on our social media, and I'll make sure that I'm kind of updating you guys all on, you know, any kind of big events that we have. You know, the fall thing, I look forward to sharing that with you if it ends up going through. We'll see. But I think other than that, that's pretty much it. Again, this is our kind of new setup. and I can always change it. But again, I would really like some feedback. If
Yeah.
this is what you like, or maybe you don't want to look at us rectangularly. You
Or
only
so
want to
close.
see a square. But yeah, any type of feedback, I would
Yeah.
appreciate.
And I think long term, we're also still planning to do other like Gundam or whatever.
We're still
we'll do
doing.
events
And we might
from
have a different
time to
layout,
time.
but yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the one I still got to figure out.
a good camera setup for that.
Well, we have some time.
Yeah.
I still have a pile of Gundams.
Yeah,
so.
me too. Yeah.
And the Lego set that I was working on. So yeah.
But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Meg, if you are wanting any of the, if you have not pre-ordered or pre-purchased Konsui Fighter, you can find it on the Google Play Store. If you just search Konsui Fighter on there, you'll find our 2211. That we said
2023.1. It's our January release.
So 2023.11 build. So that one.
Yeah.
What did I say?
We said 11.
Whoops. Well, it's got a
few
one.
months ago,
It's got a one in there.
Yeah.
But anyways, so you can find it on there. You can always follow us on social media at Konsui Fighter.
We'll eventually have a Steam page.
Yep.
up
Yeah.
there.
I think that's probably going to be my next big kind of focus right now.
I think we're getting closer than we have. So,
We have a little bit more to put together there, and we need to pin down our strategy for what we're putting out when. I think we're going to start with a wish listable page. We've been debating how we want to handle the PC release with respect to that.
Because in theory, like it's fairly far along, but we want to have certain features there.
Yeah. It's one of those things of, we still know there are certain core features or balancing adjustments or other things that are expected.
Yeah.
So to not, we know we need to implement them. So not to, put a negative experience out there for people for their first try.
Yeah, but we do a lot of like testing internally.
Yeah.
So, like the PC build's pretty solid.
It's
just
performance-wise, there's just some staple features that we need to add.
Yep.
I mean, things like controller remapping.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet, and that's kind of expected.
And the good thing is, like, we already natively support Linux and the Steam Deck and like all these platforms.
Yeah,
so
Mac,
should be pretty
like
Mac,
all those.
So I mean,
systems.
it's getting there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, we want to make sure that the first experience that you get with our game, no matter what product you're on, we want to make sure that it's it's solid.
Yeah.
And so that's that's kind of the main thing.
And maybe someday we'll be on other platforms.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about Switch before, but who knows?
It's a
By
goal.
that time, maybe there'll be the Switch
We'll see.
Pro plus 2 Max Ultra.
XL.
We don't know anything.
Or no, they're just going to call it the new Switch.
The new Switch.
God, I hope
Switch
not.
with two eyes.
Sweet.
But anyways,
You heard it here first, folks.
The Switch.
what?
Better the Switch U.
You Switch.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right. Well, on that note, we're gonna go ahead and
We're playing D&D later.
yeah, we're playing not D&D.
Old
Well,
school essentials.
old school
It's
essentials.
BX
Basically.
D&D.
Yeah.
It's BX D&D.
It's just from a broad
Classic.
category. They'll know what that means.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all on the next stream. Take care, guys.
Thanks.